Day, and welcome back to Tech Tips, Fixes and More. My name's Ron, and today we're going to be looking at a LED television. It's actually my own personal television, and I went to turn it on this morning, and I had sound, I had no video, and in looking at it more closely, it appears that possibly the backlighting feature on this TV has gone awry, and so I'm going to take a look at it and see if I can get it working. I've done a little bit of a shortcut on this one and came up with a YouTube video that talks specifically about this TV. Now, this TV is an LG television, and it's a 55 UJ6200. And so this video talks specifically about that and talks about how there are some common problems that occur with the backlighting. And so I'm going to pull it apart and just see if that's going to prove to be the case with this one. So stay tuned and we'll see what we find out with the LG 55 UJ6200 TV. Okay, so here are the two main boards inside the TV. This is the power supply board over here, and this connector and wire goes to the actual backlight circuits. This one over here is the input board and other circuitry. So we're going to take a look at the voltage on the connector going out to the backlight. There are 6 terminals on this connector, and they're labeled on the board. The 2 on the left are grounds, and the 2 on the far right are positive voltages that go to the backlight. The backlight is set up with 2 sections, and so the 2 most right terminals are connected to those 2 different sections. So what I'm doing here is just measuring to see if there's any voltage going out to those backlight sections, and as you can see, I didn't get any voltage on those outputs. So I was faced with the question of whether or not to try and order up this board or troubleshoot the board. I couldn't find a schematic for this power supply board, and it's fairly complicated. So I decided to check with one of the local TV repair shops that does a lot of this work, and I went over and chatted with this guy, and he was quite helpful. And he said to me that what he has found in working on these is that 95% of the time the problem is with the LEDs for the backlight, and it's not with the power supply. It could be that when the power supply senses an open circuit on the output, that it just shuts down that voltage, and so you can't measure that voltage. That's what I'm assuming at this point anyway. So he suggested that it probably, almost certainly, would be a problem with the backlight LEDs. And from my research online, I'm led to believe that these LEDs are all put in series, and if one LED goes bad, then they all are out, and then we have no backlight whatsoever. Now, because these LEDs are all in series, trying to test them with a standard multimeter is just not workable, because a multimeter doesn't put out enough voltage to forward bias all these LEDs in series. So I got looking for some test equipment that might be able to do the job, and I found on Amazon this piece of test equipment here. Now, for those of you who do this kind of work all the time, I suppose this would be a common sight. You probably recognize this, but I've never worked with one of these exactly. It's basically a little voltage source that is current limited, or maybe it's better to say that it's a current source that has the capability of putting out up to about 265 volts DC. And so by doing that, if you limit the current to 30 milliamps, which is what it does, and it can supply the necessary voltage, you should be able to then measure the voltage across the whole string of LEDs. And that's what this is supposed to do. It's got two ranges actually. It's got a range for measuring individual LEDs, and it puts out 1 milliamp. And then it's got the other range that puts out 30 milliamps and can source up to 265 volts. So this then should be able to test not only the string of LEDs but individual ones. So, okay, so we've got our meter on, and it's showing 326 volts. Nominally, on the front of this, it says that the voltage goes up to about 265, but obviously it's more than that. And that's because the probes are not connected to anything. So with an open circuit, no current flowing, the open circuit voltage is showing there. Now, I'm going to be measuring the LEDs in the backlight, and this connector is currently upside down to the way it plugs into this connector here. And so on this end we have the negative side. On one string I get 325, 326, and on the other I get 59. So that would lead me to believe that there's one string of LEDs in here that are functional, and there's one that is not functional. I'm going to have to open this thing up in order to find the LED or multiple LEDs that are faulty. Now, fortunately, the YouTube video that I found of a guy fixing these gives quite a bit of detail on how to get this thing apart, which is a real plus, because usually getting apart some of these TVs and other products, it's a major job just figuring out which screws to take out and where there are snaps and connections. So I'm going to check that out again, and then I'm going to take this thing apart. So first I'll take off these ribbon connectors. There's just little tabs that pull up, and they come out quite easily, I think. There we go. And then we're going to have to take off some other pieces of tape to get some of these ribbon cables off. Okay, so this is where we get to the somewhat terrifying part, where we need to lift the screen off. And according to the YouTube video that I watched, they really recommend that you have some suction cups, the kind that you might use on placing windows and placing glass. And of course, I do not have that. So we're going to see if we can get this without wrecking the screen, without having that particular tool. Step apparently is to take off these little plastic standoffs. Okay, so there you have the side that is working, and it's showing 58.8 volts. And this will be the side that isn't working, I would expect. And that's correct. Now we'll see if we can find out what segment is not working. That segment is working. That segment is working. That segment is working. And that segment is not working. That one's working. That one's working. It would appear that we have 3 that are not working. Okay, so based on the results of the tests I did with my little new meter, it looks like 3 of those LEDs are shorted out and need to be replaced in the one side. And so I'm going to have to order those up. My friend over at the TV repair shop, who has done a lot more of this kind of thing, especially in the past few years at least, told me 2 things. First, whenever they do this, they replace the whole set of LEDs, just because matching them properly, and also for reliability, especially considering that if you're taking this all apart, you don't want to have to do it again in a year or less. So they replace the whole set. And secondly, they generally get OEM or original equipment manufacturer parts, because sometimes the ones you might buy from someplace like Amazon may not be as reliable or have the same life expectancy. But I don't actually have access right now to LG parts from the factory, so I'll probably get the Amazon ones and hope that they are going to do as good a job and be as reliable as possible. And I also found out that through Amazon, at least, you can only buy them as a complete set. So I'm going to order those up. I did look around at DigiKey and some other suppliers, and I wasn't able to find ones that looked physically like they would fit. And the other thing is I don't know the specs of the originals to know for sure what their intensity is and what their color components are. So I am going to order these up from Amazon, and they're running somewhere between $30 and $60 depending on where you buy them from, and it looks like you can get them in a couple of weeks. So that's what we're doing, and I will get back to you as soon as those parts get in. So I'm back, and a couple of weeks has elapsed since I ordered the LEDs for this TV. Taking a look at the strips that are in here, it looks like they're held down by double-sided tape. So I'm going to have to pry that off and try to find something similar, different. So these are the LEDs, these three here that are faulty, and I probably should be changing all of these out, and I may do that, but I think for now I'm going to pull these off, or pull this strip off, and then I'm going to try replacing one of them, because if these strips prove to be difficult to replace and get taped down, it may be just as effective just to replace the one strip. I taped down the LED strip using some double-sided tape that I had on hand. It was a little thicker than the original tape, but it did the job, and the only concern I have now is that it may not stick when things get hot inside the TV, so I'm hoping that that will all work out okay. I only replaced the one strip so that I could test it out. So here we are with the LG television put back together. Everything seems to be in place. I've hooked up the power and I've got the remote. Let's check it out. That's a good sign. It says AV. I have no actual signal connected to it, but you can see that the screen is lighting up. It seems to be pretty even as far as its brightness and the backlighting. So I think we can chalk this up as a win. In the end, I only put in the one strip of LEDs. That may be a mistake, but it was very difficult getting the old ones off, and I decided that I would try it, and the only way to test it was to put it all back together. And so in order to add the rest of the LEDs, I would have to open it up again. It seems to be all right now. It could fail at some point, but what I've decided to do with this television, I'm going to actually donate it to our church to be used with their little children's ministry. And so it's actually going to be still within arm's reach of me, and if it does fail again, then I'll get it back and I'll put in the rest of the LEDs, and that may prove to be to add work, but it may work for years as it is too. So I think we'll just decide to do it that way and hope for the best. So I think that's it. That was a very interesting project. First time I've actually done that particular fix on a TV, but I learned something. I hope that you found it useful and learned something as well. And I'd be happy to hear from you. Please leave comments, and also give me a like. That would always be helpful. And if you'd like to subscribe, there should be more of these kinds of videos, everything from electronics fixes to fixes around the house, or whatever comes through the door actually. And so I'm hoping that you're finding this useful and interesting. So I think we'll sign off at that point, and thank you very much for being here, and we'll talk to you on the next one.